When I was growing up, I had one of those children's Bibles that had the illustrations in it, and I remember the illustrations that were in the part of Exodus talking about the construction of the tabernacle. In almost every picture, it was men who were going around doing the work of the tabernacle. And I think that sometimes we can get into a pattern of thinking that it was only men who were involved in the tabernacle's construction and in the day-to-day care of the tabernacle. But it's interesting, if you start looking at Scripture as a whole, you'll notice that this couldn't possibly have been the case, nor would God have wanted it to be. If you think about Egypt and the Israelites coming out in the Exodus, we know that when they were in Egypt, they were involved in serving the Egyptians in heavy manual labor. That's what we see described over and over again. But we also know that it's unlikely that a lot of the women were involved in the heaviest forms of manual labor. So what would the Israelite women have been skilled in coming out of Egypt? It's pretty likely that they would have been skilled in a lot of the craft work that was going to be necessary for the construction of the tabernacle. And in fact, when you get to Exodus 36 and you see that God calls Bezalel and Oholiab to oversee all of the skilled craftspeople, that the term there is actually a term that is not gender specific, that we would assume that men and women were involved in all of the artistry that was required to execute the tabernacle. Not only that, but it's commonly held that the job of weaving was given to women. And if you think forward to the book of Judges and the story of Jael and her tent peg, where she hammers a tent peg through Sisera's head, commentators are often quick to note that a setting up of tents was women's work. That's why Jael is so handy with her tent peg. So we should assume, when we're reading texts about what's going on in the day-to-day life of the tabernacle, that anything that was a community effort, whether that's the upkeep or the setting up or the tearing down, anything that was a community effort would have been done by both men and women. This makes better sense when you think about the book of Exodus as a whole, because the book opens with these pictures of women who are doing these really important things. The midwives, Moses' mother and sister, even Pharaoh's own daughter, are all actively involved in the deliverance of the people of Israel from the Egyptians. So as we move into those latter parts of the book and we talk about the construction of the tabernacle, our natural assumption would not be that women drop out of the narrative, but that both men and women are involved in all these communal aspects. So as you're reading through the book of Exodus, remember to ask the question, where are the women? And maybe one day there will be a children's Bible that shows both the men and the women laboring alongside one another in the work of keeping God's house as it should be.